History calls the Mongol conquest of China inevitable. A tide of nomadic fury, an unstoppable force, destiny written in blood and horsehair. The evidence disagrees. For 60 years, China's walls held. The Mongols were the greatest cavalry force in human history, and cavalry cannot climb stone. They had no siege weapons capable of breaching a fortified city, no physics, no engineering, no way through. What broke China open was a mathematical equation invented in Persia by engineers who were prisoners, captured during a war that never needed to happen. A war started by one man, one throne room, one catastrophically arrogant decision. 1218 AD. By the end of this investigation, you will know the exact moment one king's ego guaranteed the destruction of two civilizations, his own and one he never set foot in. You will see blood on Persian marble. You will see Chinese walls shattered by stones thrown from 3,000 miles away. And you will understand that the Mongol conquest of China was not inevitable. It was built by the wrong man for the wrong reasons. Think of it this way. Imagine a medieval king so arrogant, he slaps the personal envoy of the most dangerous warlord alive. Not because he had to, but because he needed to look tough in front of his own court. Then imagine that single act of ego destroying a civilization on the other side of the planet 60 years later. That is not a metaphor. That is the forensic record. The Shah's name was Ala al-Din Muhammad II of Khwarezm. Call him the architect. Not because he built anything lasting, but because, through pure arrogance, he architected the precise chain of events that erased two of the greatest empires on Earth. Think about that. In 1218, the Khwarezmian Empire was one of the wealthiest states on the planet. It stretched from the Persian Gulf to the grasslands of Central Asia, modern Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan. All of it under one crown. 5 million subjects, a standing army of 400,000 men. Think of the Silk Road as the interstate highway of the medieval world. Every coin of jade, spice, and gold moving between China and Rome passed through the architect's hands. The architect ruled all of it, and he was terrified. Most people assume the Shah fell because he underestimated Genghis Khan. The evidence reveals something more precise. He understood the threat clearly enough and chose provocation anyway. Because the real enemy, in his mind, was not the Mongol warlord on the steppe. It was his own mother. His mother controlled the mercenary Turkic army that kept the Shah on his throne. She controlled appointments. She controlled loyalty. She held the actual levers of power while her son held the title. The Shah's empire was a diarchy. 2 rulers, 1 crown, constant war for dominance. The Shah did not project arrogance because he was confident. He projected arrogance because he was desperate. Every act of violence, every display of absolute power was a performance staged for an audience of one, his own court, his own mother, the men whose loyalty she could purchase at any moment. Think of it as the empire's HR department, but the HR director was his mother. She had hired everyone in the building, and she could fire him permanently, at any moment, with a sword. Paranoia disguised as strength. The catastrophe grew from this soil. In 1218, a Mongol-sponsored trade caravan arrived at the border city of Otrar. 450 Muslim merchants, silk, silver, an olive branch from Genghis Khan, who was heavily occupied fighting the Jin dynasty in northern China and wanted trade, not a second war. The Shah's uncle, Governor Inalchuk, call him the Spark, saw something different when that caravan arrived. He saw a vault, unguarded, vulnerable. He accused the merchants of espionage, arrested every one of them, and had them executed. All 450. Then he seized the cargo. The Shah had the power to stop it. He endorsed it instead. One camel driver escaped the slaughter, crossed the steppe, found Genghis Khan. Before the next move, consider what the architect was gambling. Samarkand, markets stretching half a mile, carrying goods from Persia to Korea. Bukhara, a city of mathematicians, astronomers, and physicians whose libraries contained centuries of Islamic scientific knowledge, more accumulated learning than any city in Europe. Urgench, the capital, gleaming with mosques whose blue-tiled domes were visible for 20 miles across the flat steppe. An empire so wealthy it made the kingdoms of Europe look like villages, built over centuries. The architect was betting all of it on a bluff. Genghis Khan sent 3 ambassadors west, 1 Muslim envoy, 2 Mongol envoys. Their message was diplomatic and specific. Hand over Inalchuk for trial. Resolve this peacefully. The Shah's response was deliberate, calculated, and forensically insane. He executed the Muslim ambassador on the spot. He ordered his guards to hold down the 2 Mongol envoys and forcibly shave their beards from their faces, a profound desecration in Central Asian culture, the equivalent of branding a man as subhuman. Then, he sent them back across the steppe, humiliated, degraded, carrying the severed head of their colleague. The ancient world had one law that crossed every cultural boundary. An ambassador was untouchable. You could be at total war with a nation and still receive its envoys safely. To execute an ambassador was not an act of strength, it was an act of suicide. The Romans understood this. In 149 BC, Carthage mistreated Roman envoys, broke truces, humiliated diplomatic missions, tortured prisoners on the city walls in full view of the Roman army. Rome's response was total civilizational erasure. The city leveled, the fields salted, the survivors sold into chains, the name of Carthage reduced to a warning. The architect had just played Carthage, he just didn't know it yet. He was afraid of looking weak, he chose looking strong. The choice was fatal. When the humiliated envoys rode back to Genghis Khan and delivered their report, the Mongol warlord did something no one expected. He went silent. He climbed alone to a hilltop. He stayed there for 3 days. When he came down, he had one order: west. 100,000 Mongol cavalry turned away from China. The Jin dynasty got to breathe. Persia did not. The Shah's 400,000-man army sat locked in its isolated garrisons, one per city, spread across hundreds of miles of steppe, unable to reinforce each other. Genghis Khan already knew this. The Shah had no idea that he did. The catastrophe was already decided. "400,000 soldiers, 150,000 Mongols. The mathematics should have favored the Shah. They did not, because the Shah was more afraid of his own army than of Genghis Khan. Paranoid that his generals, many loyal to his mother, would use a concentrated force to move against him, the Shah had split his army before the first arrow flew. Each city would defend itself. No concentrated counterattack, no mobile reserve, no coordination. He turned his army into a collection of isolated prisons, and then he waited for the walls to hold. The Shah's defensive logic rested on geography. His northern flank was protected by the Kizilkum, 300 miles of burning, shifting desert sand. No army had ever crossed it. No water, no shade. Temperatures lethal enough to kill a horse in hours. A wall more reliable than stone in his calculation. Genghis Khan found nomadic guides who knew where the oases were, forced his cavalry through the sand, leaping from water source to water source across the 300-mile expanse. The citizens of Bukhara looked out one morning to find tens of thousands of Mongol horsemen assembled outside their gates. No warning, no sound, no auditory signal of any kind. the desert had delivered an army in silence. The garrison made a run for it. The Mongols cut them down at the river. The citizens, abandoned, leaderless, opened the gates. The Mongols drove the civilian population into the moat ditches as human shields for the final citadel assault. Fire broke out. Whether by accident or design, the chronicles don't specify. The largely wooden city burned to its foundations. Bukhara, gone. Samarkand surrendered within days. Its garrison was executed anyway. Merv fell without a prolonged fight. Its population, estimated between 700,000 and 1.3 million, was systematically cleared. Word reached the Shah. Two of his greatest cities had fallen. He had 400,000 soldiers spread across his empire. He could have consolidated, could have chosen a defensible position, concentrated his forces, forced the Mongols into a siege they weren't equipped to sustain. He did not. He ran. The Shah of Khwarezm, commander of 400,000 men, absolute sovereign of 5 million people, master of the wealthiest trade route on earth, fled his own capital and kept running. He spent 2 years as a fugitive across the collapsing ruins of his own empire, Mongol cavalry tracking him province to province while his subjects were annihilated behind him. His mother, the woman he had spent his entire reign trying to impress, was captured by the Mongols in the chaos. She died in captivity in Mongolia, a prisoner of the war her son's ego had summoned. The performance had consumed the audience. The citizens of the capital awoke one morning to find their god king had vanished in the night. No orders, no plan, no army. Just the sound of the approaching horde and the realization that they had been abandoned to face it alone. Nishapur. The citizens revolted and killed Genghis Khan's son-in-law. Genghis Khan's son arrived with orders that left no room for interpretation. Every man, woman, and child was to be executed. The specific forensic order: decapitate the dogs and cats as well. Sever every head. Leave nothing with a heartbeat. 1,700,000 people, stacked in geometrically precise pyramids, sorted by gender and age on the plains outside the city walls. 1,700,000. That is the entire population of modern Philadelphia, erased in days. The Sparks' fate arrived at Otrar. After a 5-month siege, Governor Inalchuk retreated to his citadel tower, throwing bricks at the Mongols when his weapons ran out. Captured alive, he was pinned to the stone floor. The Mongols did not draw a sword. They pulled out silver coins and a crucible, and they waited for the metal to reach 1,763 degrees. Then they poured it into his eyes and his ears. He died with the exact silver he murdered to steal burning through his brain. History's accounting can be precise when it wants to be. Urgench, the Shah's gleaming capital, its blue domes visible 20 miles away, fell after block-by-block urban combat so costly that the Mongols implemented a strict quota: 50,000 soldiers, 24 civilian executions each. When the killing was done, they broke the river dams. The Amu Darya flooded the ruins and drowned the survivors in the cellars. The capital the Shah abandoned to save himself was swallowed by the water it had been built to master. Think of Rome's aqueducts, except buried underground, hidden from enemies for 3,000 years. That was the Persian Khanate network, gravity-fed subterranean rivers that allowed entire cities to thrive in hostile desert, invisible from the surface, pumping life from deep aquifers to every field and orchard above. The Mongols hunted down the maintenance shafts and collapsed them, blocked the tunnel mouths. The underground veins of the civilization went dry. Orchards died. Crops blackened. The desert swallowed the green. Vast regions of Iran would not recover for 800 years. And then the Shah himself ended. Not in battle, not at the head of his army, on an island. January 11th, 1221. The most powerful man in the Middle East died of a lung infection on a freezing mud bank in the Caspian Sea. Torn, filthy undershirt. No burial shroud. No ceremony. No army. No court. The men who had once prostrated themselves before him were dead or had stopped looking for him months ago. The architect of two civilizational collapses died without enough cloth to cover his own body. That is the verdict in one image. 3 days after Bukhara fell, the Shah fragmented what remained of his northern army across 6 separate garrison points. Each one besieged in turn. Each one fell in turn. 400,000 soldiers, used in groups of 10,000, isolated and unsupported, against 150,000 concentrated Mongol cavalry. The math of paranoia. Divide your own strength to protect your throne and watch your enemy destroy you in fractions. No rain fell on the Persian plateau for 3 years following the Connaught destruction. The soil cracked and blew away in the wind. The engineers who understood the water system were dead. The administrators who managed grain reserves were dead. Mothers in the surviving settlements boiled leather to feed their children. Dry dust where the smell of damp, fertile earth had been for 3,000 years. The Shah had not merely lost a war. He had permanently altered the geography of the region he was supposed to protect. He built a 400,000-man army to project absolute, unquestioned power. His paranoia about that army's loyalty prevented him from ever deploying it as a single, unified force. He died alone, protected by no one, on an island too small to find on most maps. The weapon he built to guarantee his survival guaranteed his annihilation. The architect's final structure, a perfect load-bearing trap, constructed entirely from his own reflection. Right now, the island where the Shah died in rags sits under 30 feet of Caspian Sea. The water finished what history started. But the forensic trail does not end on that island. It does not end in Persia at all. 1272, a message reached China from the ruins of Khwarezm. Kublai Khan had been besieging the twin fortress cities of Xiangyang and Fancheng for 5 years. The walls held. Cavalry, arrows, fire, nothing worked. He needed engineers, men who understood the physics of counterweight siege mechanics native to the Mediterranean and Islamic worlds. Physics the Mongols had absorbed when they destroyed Persia. 2 captured Persian engineers arrived at the siege yard in China. The Mongols erased Persian civilization with Mongol swords, then used Persian mines to erase Chinese civilization with Persian physics. The conquered built the weapon that conquered the next. After World War II, the United States captured Nazi rocket scientists, men who built weapons to kill Americans, and handed them a laboratory and a budget. Within 20 years, those captured mines put an American on the moon. Kublai Khan ran the same calculation in 1272. The engineering brain trust of a defeated world deployed against a completely different enemy. The result? The Hui Hui Pao, the Muslim trebuchet. A counterweight catapult launching 165 pounds of stone with enough force to penetrate 2.5 meters into the earth on impact. A perfectly spherical boulder blocking out the sun as it arcs over the walls of Xiangyang. The Chinese chronicles record the sound when the first stone hit the walls of Fancheng as shaking heaven and earth. A concussive detonation the defenders had never heard and had no frame to absorb. The wall that had held for 5 years cracked. The commander surrendered the same day. The Song dynasty fell in 1279. 89 years of foreign rule followed. The chain from first to last. 1218. The architect shaves the beards of 2 Mongol envoys in a Persian throne room, alone with his ego. 1219. The invasion begins. 100,000 horses turn west. 1221. The Shah dies in a torn shirt on a frozen Caspian island, alone. 1221 to 1260. the Mongols absorbed the engineering knowledge of the civilization they just erased. 1272, two Persian engineers arrive at the walls of Xiangyang with new mathematics. 1273, the walls fall in a single day. 1279, the Song dynasty ends. One insult, 61 years, two civilizations. The Khwarezmian Empire does not exist in any form today, not conquered and absorbed, erased. The Shah's son fought a brief guerrilla resistance across Afghanistan and India before dying in obscurity, murdered by a Kurdish peasant who didn't even know who he was. The dynasty ended not in a throne room, but in a ditch. Gone. The libraries of Bukhara and Merv burned with the cities. The Dark Age that followed set Islamic scientific progress back by generations. The underground Qanat networks were never fully repaired. The Timurid dynasty rebuilt Samarkand's blue domes 2 centuries later, but the desert the Mongols engineered still stands. Those wastelands are not natural geography. They are the 800-year-old scar of the Mongols collapsing the Qanat veins. The desert is forensic evidence. The Qanat ghost lines are still visible from space. 800 years of desert where the orchards were. The blue-tiled domes of Samarkand were rebuilt. The mathematics are still extraordinary. Geometric tile work so precise it was not fully understood by Western architects until the 20th century. The scholars who designed those patterns are nameless. Their libraries are ash. The domes endure. The minds that built them did not. Fractured blue tile catching afternoon light, half a world away from anyone who remembers what it cost. History is full of men who chose the performance of strength over the substance of it, who picked the fight that felt most satisfying in the moment, against the opponent they most needed to impress, at the exact cost they could least afford to pay. The architect did not fail because he was weak. He failed because he could not distinguish between power and the appearance of power, between building an empire and building an image. The Mongols did not destroy Khwarezm. The Shah destroyed Khwarezm. The Mongols just arrived to collect. History does not punish with lightning. It punishes with mathematics. Patient, precise, indifferent to the ego of the man who triggered it.